What's up, everybody? Jason Messer here, Editor-in-Chief of Cheat Code Central. Thanks for checking out the stream, and to everybody in the chat or watching it back later on our Facebook feed. Well, I gotta say, this has been a really geeky weekend, but I love it. We have 3 geeky things going on this weekend. So we had the first Star Wars trailer to drop either on Thursday or Friday. Can't remember which. That would be for Rise of Skywalker. So that was just the teaser, which we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the stream. But the first video we're going to talk about was EA's new Star Wars game, where the trailer came out for that on Saturday, which is yesterday. And then tonight, we got Game of Thrones, people. It's coming back. I gotta be honest with you, I didn't even know it was back tonight. My wife reminded me, so I thought it was next week. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at both Star Wars trailers. We're going to start with the EA one. We're going to kind of react to that. Then I'm going to take a look at Rise of Skywalker. Now, I have not seen either one of these. I've been specifically holding off in order to react to them on the stream, and I wanted to stream a little bit earlier in the weekend, but I just got busy with some other stuff. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through kind of my history with the Star Wars games first, leading up to this. We'll talk a little bit about EA's history with the franchise, what they need to do with the new game, and we'll watch it together. We'll react to it. I recommend that you see it on your own, because obviously I'm going to have the volume down so I can actually hear over it and still talk. I'm going to be talking over it anyway. So if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend you check it out for yourself even afterwards, if this is the first time you're seeing it. Same thing with Rise of Skywalker. But yeah, we'll definitely get into both of those. And then it's just a little bonus thing at the end. We're going to talk about something that I read recently that Mark Hamill had said about Force Awakens, which I found really interesting, but we'll get into that here in a minute. So yeah, first things first, we're going to be taking a look at the EA Star Wars trailer for their game Star Wars Fallen Jedi. No, that's not right. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. That's it. I keep wanting to call it Fallen Jedi, or yeah, Star Wars Fallen Jedi. I think that's a better title. Am I right? I mean, I think it is. I think I just named it a better title. I think I did. EA, I'm not going to charge you for that. But anyway, yeah, it came out yesterday. And we actually did a story on this on the site. I definitely recommend you go and just check it out. The story that we did was essentially why this may be EA's last shot with the Star Wars license and making a good Star Wars game. And that story is up on the site. Definitely take time to read that and check it out. But the gist of it is the fact that EA is a company that kind of is going through a PR crisis right now. They're not terribly, I don't want to say they're not terribly liked in the industry, because obviously they still make, they can make good games. They're still making money hand over fist, but they're very aware of the fact that they've screwed the pooch on a couple things, specifically the microtransaction issue. Right around the time Force Awakens was set to launch, or was it? I believe it was either Force Awakens or was it Last Jedi? No, it was Force Awakens, because they actually did DLC for the game that actually related to Jakku, which was in Force Awakens. And I remember reading stories, I'm sure everybody else did, the fact that they messed up the microtransaction situation with that so badly, and people were so pissed off about that Star Wars game, which was just a remake of, it was like the reboot of Battlefront. The Disney execs, or I guess whoever is either someone from Lucasfilm or the Disney exec, had to basically go to EA and say, look, this is a closed door meeting. You guys have got to fix this. You got to fix it now, because we have this multi-million-dollar blockbuster Star Wars film that's coming out, and you guys are killing our hype for it. It's all this bad will tied up in the Star Wars game. We can't have that. So, and to be honest, things didn't really get all that better over time. EA tried to do what they could to fix it, but the ship had kind of sailed on that model of the game. And of course, they turned off the microtransactions for a while, and then they turned it back on. And obviously, it's not just the Star Wars games that's giving EA problems. They kind of have a general marketing problem anyway, in the sense that their approach to how they're bringing games to the market is not something gamers and industry people, specifically on the journalistic side, are completely happy with. So they probably know in their hearts that this game has to work specifically for the Star Wars license, or it might be one of those things where, and to be honest, I'm not sure what the deal is with EA and Lucasfilm or Disney or however that works out. They may be coming to a close on that already. I'm not sure like how many years they had on that, but I'm sure the folks that specifically manage the Star Wars license of that division have no problem pulling that license if this game is not a success. So EA really needs to hit a home run with it. Now, I can tell you that from the early rumblings that I've read about, and I haven't actually seen any gameplay yet, which is why I'm really excited about watching this. I know a little bit about, I know the gist of the story and kind of what they were looking to do. But so far, it looks like it may be a really good game. I'm hoping it's going to be a game. So we'll go ahead and actually, or I'm hoping it's going to be a good game. So we're going to go ahead and get this loaded up, because I'm really excited about seeing it. It's fixed here. So we are going to take a look and see how it turned out. Fingers crossed. I have high hopes for this game. Let's take a look.
Wasn't always like this.
I like the actor they have playing the main character, by the way. I'll talk about that in a minute. From Gotham.
There are 3 rules to survive.
So they're clearly like an...
Stand out.
It's like an underground thing, and they're in hiding.
Accept the past.
So he's clearly a Padawan disguised as like a junker or a traitor or like a mercenary. So he's working in some kind of industrial thing.
The galaxy's changed.
Looks like some Republic era gear they're cutting up. Don't use the Force. Don't do it. You're gonna give yourself away.
Don't reach within.
See, he messed up. Now they know he's a Jedi. A wannabe Jedi. This sounds very Avenger-ish. The soundtrack.
Accept the past.
Execute Order 66.
Got some Palpatine in there. Love it. New Stormtroopers. We'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, there you go. If he had just let that guy die, I mean, that wouldn't have been very Jedi-like, but still. Whoa. Nice.
Trust only in the Force.
And then you got the broken saber there. I wonder what's up with that. If you notice in the graphic art and in the trailer, the end of the lightsaber is broken off. I wonder what that's about. I'm sure we'll find out. Coming in November. It's a good piece away, but Jedi Order, Fallen Order, coming November 15th. Okay. So, initial thoughts. All right, so I'm going to say right off the bat, this reminds me of The Force Unleashed. Now, I can tell you, I friggin' love those two games. Force Unleashed and Force Unleashed 2. They were out for the previous generation, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, I believe. I'm sure it got a port. I played it on the 360. I love those games. Now, the reason I love those games is because I was an old school Shadows of the Empire fan back on PC and N64. I personally, I know that they have done shooters to death for Star Wars. Obviously, there's tons of like X-Wing style flying missions and things like that, and that all makes sense because those are big aspects of the Star Wars franchise. They've even had Star Wars fighting games back on the original PlayStation. For me personally, I love the action-adventure style hack and slash Star Wars games. I think Force Unleashed did it the best. I hated to see the third Force Unleashed get canceled. It was because LucasArts basically folded because they were bought out, and they pretty much shelved any currently in development LucasArts games, and that The Force Unleashed 3 was one of them. I was really looking forward to that. I love those series. This looks like it could be in that, like it's harkening back to that style. So I really love that. That looks really fun. There's a couple other things about the story. Now, the game, from what I know, it takes place immediately after Revenge of the Sith, right after the Jedi are basically wiped out, and before the prequel trilogies, all we knew about that period between, like before New Hope, was that Vader he was sent to hunt down all the remaining Jedi. Well, now we're seeing that it wasn't just Vader. First of all, we saw new stormtroopers, and it seems like every time we turn around, every time a new game comes out, they introduce a new kind of stormtrooper that we never saw before. Even though they're nowhere in any of the movies, there's so many different stormtroopers out there. It's ridiculous. And now we got another one. We got kind of like what is essentially the Death Squad version of the stormtroopers, where they're actually going to be going out and helping hunt down the remaining Jedi and the remaining Padawans, which obviously the character here, who's the actor is actually, it's Cameron Monaghan, who plays the Joker on Gotham, the TV series Gotham. Great. Loved him in that show. Glad to see that he's going to be involved in the game. But you notice there was kind of a main bad guy that jumped on the ship at the end. And I had read about that character. I think it's called the Inquisitor, if I'm not mistaken. Immediately what I noticed about that is there is no way a normal person would be, like a normal stormtrooper would be able to do what she's doing, or he's doing. I think, I want to say it's a female character, but I'm not 100% sure. The point is, that is probably either a Dark Jedi or maybe... could it be another Sith or something? They clearly are using some kind of force power there. So that's exciting. The trailer looks awesome. I have high hopes for this game. I am going to absolutely play it at launch. I'm sure we will review it on the site. You can almost certainly guarantee that. I really, really, and EA, if you're watching, I really want you to have a win here. This is important not only to the Star Wars license itself. It's important to, EA as a company. It's important to me as a fan. I want to love this game. I'm going to play it. I'll probably finish it unless it's something crazy happens where I can't get through it or something like that. But I absolutely want to love this game. It looks awesome, and I'm really excited for it. So November 15th, and hopefully around that time we're going to have a lot more Rise of Skywalker footage, which we're going to be talking about here in a minute. But yeah, I absolutely want them to do well with this, because I honestly don't think you're going to see any other EA licensed Star Wars games if this doesn't do well. Now, it's also important to remember here, EA was not really... They were in a situation where they weren't going to be the only one bidding on this license. It's not really... You can't really blame them for the license landing with them, and I'll tell you why. There was a similar situation years ago, probably back in the early to mid-2000s, where EA became the sole producer of NFL licensed games, specifically Madden. Everybody got really ticked off at that, and they were like, oh, I can't believe you did that, and you're cutting out all these other, franchises that also have a right to use it, and blah, blah, blah. The thing is, it wasn't EA's call to do that. The NFL decided we would probably make more money licensing this out in one big payment or bundle of cash to one company rather than give it out to everybody. They figured one company would pay more to get it exclusively. EA just snatched it up. It was good business, and I can't blame them. And if you were going to have a company that has a proven track record of making good sports games, if it was going to go to one, EA is probably the company that you would want to handle it. Same situation here. You could say what you want about EA and their PR issues and their bad decision making on a lot of the financial aspect of it that relates to people like us. They're in a situation where if they were going to be offered a license, if this license was going to go to anyone, and Disney and Disney owning Star Wars, they're the ones that they're going to decide who gets this license. So if they are going to pick a company that's going to go to, it's not necessarily going to result in being a bad game just because EA has it. In fact, EA can make really great games when they really put their mind to it, when they have all their ducks in a row and they're not being distracted by, business-making decisions. As you can see in this trailer, it looks like they finally have a clear-cut vision for what a good Star Wars game could be like. My fingers are crossed. I hope it works out. And we'll continue to cover it not only on the site, but we'll probably do some additional live streaming if they do kind of an open beta or maybe even a private beta. So we'll be definitely looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it. I really want you to have a win here, EA. So I'm rooting for you. Don't let me down. Now on to our second Star Wars related video, which I am really excited about. Now this is another one it's one of those situations I was in where I wanted to watch this early so bad. I stopped myself a couple times, I gotta be honest. I was really lacking on self-control. So yeah, my self-control was absolutely tested this weekend rather, because this came out, the trailer for Rise of Skywalker came out on, I can't remember if it was Thursday or Friday, but today is Sunday, and I have been wanting to desperately watch this, but I knew I wanted to react to it on the stream. I wanted to be, have a genuine reaction and be fresh. Man, it was hard not to watch this. It was rough. Not only that, is as the internet can be, I was this close to getting spoiled at every turn. And unfortunately, I have to confess something. Yeah, I did get spoiled on one major thing in the trailer, possibly the biggest thing about the trailer. And of all sites, it was TMZ that did it. I wasn't even looking I was trying to avoid spoilers. I wasn't even looking for anything Star Wars related. I was just scrolling through my Facebook feed, and this story just comes up that specifically references something at the end of the trailer. If you've already seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And again, anybody watching the stream, if you're seeing the trailer for the first time, definitely go back and watch it separately. But yeah, that really sucked, because I was like, man, had I been able to react to that genuinely on the stream, I would have lost it, because it's one of those things where I didn't see it coming 100%. And I will also tell you that there's something about this trailer that if it kind of comes true, if it's one of those things where I can see that it's going in the direction I think it's going in, I'm going to be kind of pissed. And we'll talk about that after the trailer loads. But yeah, it's one of those situations where I have a gut feeling about this trailer. And if I'm at all correct, it's not going to be a good day for yours truly. Well, it'll be a good day because it's Star Wars, but we'll talk about that in a second. So let's get this loaded up here. We'll take a look. All right, so check it out. Very excited. I cannot tell you how badly I wanted to watch this early, but we saved it here. Here we are. It's finally here. I'm watching it. Let's check it out. Keep fingers crossed. Nothing can be worse than Last Jedi. And I don't even think it was that bad, but don't let me down, Rise of Skywalker. Here we go. Heavy breathing. What's going on? That sounds like Rey. Breathing about. Here we go. Where's she at? So is she on Tatooine? Jakku? In a desert somewhere. She's waiting on somebody. She got Luke's talking to her. She's got Luke's saber back. Oh, here comes Kylo's TIE fighter.
This is your fight.
So is Luke talking to her as a Force ghost? Definitely something deserty. Why are they in the desert again? All Star Wars movies have to take place in a desert. Is that a law? Oh, he's coming fast. What's she about to do? Here comes Kylo. He is pissed, as usual. She's running away. Where's she gonna lead him away? What's about to happen? Whoa! Rey just fought a TIE fighter. Single-handedly. I don't think I've ever seen that. Kylo's fixing his mask. I love it. That's awesome. Lando? What's up, Lando? Back behind the stick of the Falcon. So what, he just got the Falcon back, like, by default? Because Han died? Is that how that works? I guess that's how ownership rights work in the Jedi Galaxy. We got a glimpse of of Leia there.
No one's ever really gone.
What was that? Was that... Oh, see, I knew that was coming, and it still got me. Oh. In December. All right. That's normal. Because all Star Wars movies just about come out in December now. They used to be out in May. Okay, thoughts. Well, I'm excited for that. I'm going to go right to I'm going to address the elephant in the room immediately, which is Palpatine at the end. Yes, that was the thing that was spoiled. I had no idea Palpatine was in it, or even being considered to be in this film. I figured they were done with that. I didn't think they were going to go all the way back and bring, because I know they were bringing back some characters. I thought he was done. I didn't think there was any way that was going to happen. And then I read that spoiler that he was actually at the end. But see, seeing it is different. Because I'll have to go back and watch that again, because it looks like there may be some references and some Easter eggs in there that I'm not familiar with, just seeing it the first time. But am I right to assume that end scene, that big piece of like debris, that looked very Death Star-like? That looked like the laser from the Death Star. And then Palpatine's voice, they laughed. The laugh came in. Is that a piece of the Death Star and she's going to go like explore and maybe she uncovers? I don't know. How are they bringing him back? That's crazy. Is he even in the film? See, we're jumping to conclusions here. We assume Palpatine's in the film. Maybe it's kind of like a Force Awakens situation where they said Luke was in the film, but he wasn't really in the film. He was only just like at the last tail end of the movie. It was like the last scene. He was in it for like 10 seconds. Is he in the movie? Is it a flashback? What is it? What's going on? I don't know, but everything about this movie looks awesome. Now, here's what I was going to tell you earlier about being pissed off. And yeah, that trailer did piss me off a little bit, but in a good way. I'm really excited about this movie. This movie looks really good. I hope that this is going to be as awesome as I think it's going to be. But one of the reasons I have to believe that this is going to be as awesome as I think it's going to be is because J.J. Abrams is involved. Now, the last film, which was Last Jedi, they dropped J.J. Abrams. Now, that was always part of their plan. It wasn't like they saw Force Awakens and didn't like it and thought they had to get a new director. This goes back to when I first heard of what their plans were when they were making episode, is it 7? Yeah, episode 7. Before it even come out, I knew J.J. Abrams was involved. He was directing. He had already done Star Trek, which I loved. I thought this was a perfect marriage of him with the new Star Trek franchise, moving over to Star Wars. Then I heard that they were going to deliberately have different directors take on each film. And I immediately thought that was a bad idea. I hated that idea. Because I knew J.J. Abrams had a vision for it. I knew he would bring that same sensibility that he had from doing Star Trek. And he also did, he was involved in Cloverfield, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But I knew he was the right choice. And there was no reason to think that someone else should pick up from where he left off. And then you had the situation where it was handed off. He kind of laid the groundwork and where he wanted to go. He had the complete foundation of the next film after Force Awakens completely laying down. It was fine. It was awesome. Everything was rolling along perfectly. All the next director had to do was pick up the ball and run in that direction, and you could not fail. He did the nostalgia thing in Force Awakens. He did a lot of callbacks to the original trilogy, but he also introduced new characters. He gave new life into the franchise in a new direction. And then Last Jedi completely killed it. Killed off every good idea that they had teased in Force Awakens. Now they're coming full circle, and from what I understand, Kathleen Kennedy specifically went to J.J. Abrams and said, "You need to do this." And he was not on board originally. He specifically said he had second thoughts about coming back, and I can see why. The series should have never been taken from him in the first place. But she basically said, "Look, you have to come back. You have to do this. You have to wrap this up for us." So now I realize that had they kept J.J. Abrams for the second and third films, it shows me how good the second film could have been. Now, I'm not completely hating on Last Jedi. I didn't hate it. A lot of people really hate that movie. They crap all over it. It wasn't the best. Even Mark Hamill, has problems with it. And when your main character who's tied to the series longer than anyone else, or just as long, you might want to listen to him when he's saying, "Look, guys, this is not the direction that I think this should go in." And we're actually going to touch on that in another video a little bit later about something Mark Hamill had said in an interview recently. So be sure to check that out as well. But yeah, when he is saying that, you might want to take a step back and realize that, and I think this is probably what they did. They realized Last Jedi tanked. At least in the eyes of the average Star Wars fan. And I know that Star Wars fans are fickle. I know there are people that don't necessarily play well with others when it comes to being critical, having a critical eye of their own content. But it's one of those situations where even they were right this time with Last Jedi. So that shows me that Force Awakens was good. I hope Rise of Skywalker is awesome. But yeah, it shows me how good the last film could have been and what a wasted opportunity that was. But other than that, I can honestly say that looks awesome. I can't wait to see this film. I will see it opening weekend as always. Yeah, it looks great. I'm excited to see this completely full circle adventure that they've written for Rey. She's an awesome character. I gotta be honest, I didn't think I was going to care about the Rey character that much. I went into Force Awakens wanting to see Luke, Leia, Han, all the original Star Wars characters, and then, I figured there might be one or two characters that, the new people that I kind of like, and we'll kind of see where that goes. Rey and Kylo, by far, those are the two most awesome characters for me since Vader. Look, look right here. You can see I have a Rey statue right there on my shelf, right by my thumb. I love these characters, so I wasn't expecting that, and I can't wait to see where it all comes full circle. I do have a theory about Palpatine, just to end this. So you remember in Force Awakens, we saw in the trailer that Kylo is actually fixing his mask that he broke in a rage in the last movie. He's fixing it, he's putting it back together. That means he still wants to be as much like Vader as possible. And we see him talking to Vader's charred helmet in the original film. So, and he also makes a point that he's having this call to the light side, he's having this call to the dark side. It seems to be coming from Vader's helmet. We don't know why, we don't know what's influencing him. It doesn't really make sense that Vader would be talking to Kylo, even though that's kind of what he insinuates in one of those scenes where he's talking to the helmet, he's referring to him as grandfather specifically, he's mentioning him by name. But we saw Anakin turn at the end of Return of the Jedi, so there's really no reason to think or assume why would it be Anakin talking to him still. Now, I heard a fan theory that talked about how maybe when a Jedi falls, it kind of splits their personality in two, and the light side exists separately than the dark side, and maybe that even though Anakin turned, somehow the dark side Vader still exists and he inhabits the thing. I wasn't a big fan of that theory, but now that we know Palpatine for sure is back, could that explain this call to the dark side that Kylo has been experiencing? And again, essentially, he's kind of a Skywalker anyway, and it would make sense that if Palpatine was trying to somehow lure him to the dark side in order to bring himself back or something, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there exactly, but it kind of makes sense. Could that actually have been Palpatine calling to him from the dark side, and he just thinks it's Vader, and he's manipulating him just like he manipulated Anakin? I don't know. That's just my theory. I don't know if that's an original thought or not. Maybe that theory's already out there. Maybe that theory makes no sense and it's not going to go anywhere, but I can't wait. I can't wait to see how this wraps up. So it's going to be awesome. So looking forward to December. And that's just the teaser. That's not even the full trailer. Of course, we'll have a million trailers because that's how they do trailers now. They reveal way too much, and they'll release 1 to 2 official trailers, maybe 3, and then it'll be a bunch of TV spots that'll show a bunch more footage. So, yeah, if you want to be spoiled and know most of the film, you're going to have more than one opportunity to do that. I'll watch the first full trailer, probably the second one, but after that, I've gotten to where I have to cut myself off because you pretty much end up knowing way too much about the films by the end. I've been really good with Avengers, by the way. Avengers comes out in a couple weeks, and I know a little bit about it, but I don't know that much. And they keep pushing out trailers and TV spots and footage and clips, and I'm trying to avoid all that because I don't want it to be too spoiled. But yeah, the Rise of Skywalker, I gotta be honest, that's going to be hard to resist because it's the last official Star Wars in this series. They've already talked about how this is going to wrap up completely the story arc from 30 years ago, and then from here, any more Star Wars films, they are completely moving on from the Skywalker storyline. You might see Rey or some other characters, but this is it. This is completely it. So I may have a hard time avoiding some of the behind-the-scenes stuff and some of the footage, but we'll see. So we'll definitely be talking about that more. I appreciate you guys looking at it with me. And like I said, go check it out. If you haven't seen it yet, if this is your first time seeing it, I'm going to go back and watch it again. I have to, because there's way too much going on that thing. We got Lando back. He's back in the Falcon. That's awesome. I'm going to go watch it again. Definitely go check it out again yourself. And I got to say, before we move on to any Game of Thrones talks for tonight, which that'll be later, we're going to be streaming some. I think what I'm going to do later on is Game of Thrones comes on tonight at 9 o'clock. So what I probably am going to do is I'm going to try to watch Game of Thrones live, and then I'm going to stream, I think, immediately after it goes off. Because I don't want to spoil anything, and I want to give some people a chance to see it, but I figure, normally I wouldn't do a stream or a reaction to like a TV episode, but as I was mentioning to my wife earlier, this is the first episode of the last season of the most popular television show, not only on TV now, probably the most popular TV show in the last 10 years, aside from maybe Walking Dead. So I feel compelled to at least comment on the first episode, and I'll probably do the last, like the finale. So we'll see how that works out. So be looking for that. That'll be later tonight, probably around 10 Eastern, 10:30, probably something like that. And then we'll definitely talk about that. But right now, we're going to talk about one more Star Wars related thing. Like I said, this has been huge. This has been a huge weekend for geekiness in my house anyway, and I have loved it. It's been awesome. So we have one more little bit of Star Wars news to talk about, and that relates to a really interesting article that I read today about Mark Hamill. And he was talking with someone during, I think, a podcast, and he specifically says what I find to be not only yet another moment of him taking a shot at Last Jedi, but it also is kind of telling as to how I think the folks behind that film were kind of plowing their own road. They kind of put their blinders on. They had a direction they wanted to go, and they just did not want to hear anything from the outside. They were just going to stay the course no matter what. And as we saw with the result of Last Jedi and some, problems there, it wasn't a great movie. I mean, we just reacted to Rise of Skywalker, which is going to be up on the channel and the Facebook feed, so go back and check that out. But you see Leia's last moments, essentially what's Leia's last moments in that film. And Mark specifically had an outline for what he thought the ending of Force Awakens should be, which I think would have kind of thrown Last Jedi in a different direction. And we wouldn't have ended up with the film in Last Jedi had they went with Mark's idea for Force Awakens, which I'm going to talk about right now. Having said that, I don't necessarily agree with everything Mark said. I'm not a big fan of his entire concept, but I do like some of it. So Mark's idea was he thought that the end of the end of Force Awakens should still have been him at the very end. So if you remember The Force Awakens, they talk about Mark coming back. He's going to be an aged Luke. It's going to be years later. He's kind of the elder Jedi character, which you're seeing right there in that screen. So that's all the same. They knew that. But they never really told us how much he was going to be involved. And if you watch Force Awakens now, you know he's not in the film at all. He makes one appearance in one shot at the end for like 10 seconds where Rey hands him his old lightsaber, which it's an awesome scene. I love that scene. The music builds. It's full of nostalgia because you have this new character, Rey, who goes through her whole adventure in the film. She finally finds Luke, which is like the last remnants of the original trilogy, the original films, and as a fanboy for me, seeing those two elements come together is awesome. It's like the old and new, and he's holding the lightsaber, and he knows all the memories tied up in it, everything he went through with it. Of course, that's Anakin's lightsaber as well, so you got the whole prequel trilogy tied up in it. And then, of course, what happens in the first scene in Last Jedi? He throws it over his shoulder like he doesn't care, and it's this they turn it into a comedic moment, which sucked. I hated that idea. I hated everything they did with Luke in that film, and Mark did too. Mark's idea was to still keep Luke in the Force Awakens to just the end of the film. But his idea was a callback to the original trilogy, so he wanted Leia to accompany the troops to, I guess, the Starkiller base at the end and then get captured. And then Luke was going to come in disguised as a stormtrooper and be with this other group of stormtroopers. And as they went to, I guess, go to execute Leia, this mass stormtrooper just turns on him, starts shooting him. He blasts him and kills him. And then the stormtrooper takes his helmet off, and you realize it's Luke. And he basically says to Leia, "Hey, sis, I'm here to rescue you," which is a callback to the first film. That's exactly how they first meet in the original trilogy, if you don't already know. And if you don't know, why are you watching this? It's Star Wars. Go watch Star Wars. But, and then they were going to so he was going to save her. Then it still kind of sets up the reaction or the meeting with him and Rey later on. He still gets to be kind of the elder Jedi. He's basically the Yoda of the new trilogy, and he still can be in that capacity for the next film in training Rey. And the other reason why he thought that was important was that way Luke and Leia could both be on Starkiller base when Kylo kills Han, which is very key to his scenario. Because his rationale is it would be much more impactful for two people that had a stronger connection to Han instead of Rey and Finn. And yes, Chewie's there too, but Rey and Finn are essentially the characters that witness it, and they react to it, and they're heartbroken and fine. But would it had been more impactful for Leia and Luke to see that? Yes and no. And here's why I think that works and it doesn't work. The first part of his scenario, I think, is a little bit hokey. I don't think that a grown Jedi 30 years later pulling off his stormtrooper helmet again, I think that worked in the context of the original film because he's this young farm boy, inexperienced, kind of all shucks, not really knowing a lot about what's going on in the galaxy. And for the most part, in the first film, he's just kind of along for the ride. In the the second and third films, that's where you really see that he gets he's a little more worldly, I guess you could say. So I don't think that the whole Stormtrooper callback thing would have been a good idea. I do love the idea of Luke and Leia being the ones that witness Han getting killed, because there's the thing where obviously Leia seeing Han die, that would have been heart-wrenching, but then Luke's there, not only as Han's friend, but he's basically seeing the person that he's responsible for killing, like basically his ex-apprentice killing his best friend. That would have been impactful, but it would have meant more, I think, for people like me who grew up on both trilogies, the prequel and the original trilogy. It would have been a cool moment for me. From a storytelling standpoint, I don't really know how they would have gotten out of that, because how would Luke have not just went nuts and killed Kylo? I mean, he probably would have did that. Plus, that would have you would have taken away the duel between Kylo and Rey at the end of the film. And as you can see on my shelf right here, I actually have a Rey figure. That is her from the battle at the end of Force Awakens with Kylo in the snow. That scene probably couldn't have happened if Luke and Leia were both on Starkiller Base. They could have did something else, but that probably threw Luke and Kylo together a little bit too soon. They had that little bit of a showdown at the end of Last Jedi, which was pretty cool, but not what I would have wanted to see. Even if they had held it to the third film and made it even a more epic battle, I would have liked to seen that. I'm thinking, like, if you think back to Revenge of the Sith, the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin at the end, or even the fight with Yoda and Palpatine in the Senate chambers, those are badass fight scenes. I would have liked to see something on par with that with Luke and Kylo, and that just didn't happen. So I think the battle at the end of Force Awakens between Rey and Kylo was probably the best version we were going to get of that, and I don't think that Mark's version, it kind of would have taken that away, and that would have sucked. But on the other hand, it would have put a different spin on Last Jedi and would have sent Last Jedi in a completely different direction. And as a fan and everything that I've ever read about Last Jedi, most people would have wanted a different direction for Last Jedi. But anyway, you can't look back. I mean, it is what it is. Last Jedi is not a bad film. I still like parts of it. It's fun for me to still go back and watch. So I'm not going to kind of try to rewrite history too much on that. I just thought that was a funny little story that Mark had. But again, it goes to show you, Mark was not happy with how they did Force Awakens, and I don't blame him, because he clearly, on more than one occasion, gave notes and said, "Look, this is where I think you were just wrong," and they didn't listen to him. They didn't care. They just stayed the course. And now that J.J. Abrams has taken back over, and also what we know is that J.J. Abrams has specifically consulted with George Lucas on where this should go to end it, and how things should be wrapped up permanently. So I think you're going to now see a more well-rounded Star Wars film that looks like it's going to call back to the original. We just saw in the Rise of Skywalker trailer, and by the way, if you haven't seen Rise of Skywalker, the teaser, this is going to be a little spoilerish, so if you haven't seen it and you want to see it, you better click off now. But I mean, to be honest, I was already spoiled about this before I ever watched the trailer, and it was by accident. I wasn't even trying. So you probably already know that Palpatine looks like he's making a return. So how they're going to wrap all that up and how that relates to the Skywalker storyline, I'm really excited to see. But we got JJ back, we got George involved, which I'm not a fan of George as much as a director, but as a story guy, George Lucas, you can't touch him. And that's exactly the role he should always be in. And the fact that he's consulting on the story and then JJ is moving forward with his vision, that's what I want, and I'm really excited about that. And we will see come December. And I think that's going to about do it for us, guys. I had fun taking a look at those trailers. I appreciate everybody stopping by, checking out the stream. If you're watching this back in the stream later on, be sure to give it a like, share it, and look for a stream later on tonight. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Game of Thrones does premiere tonight, so I think what I'm going to do, if all goes well, I'm going to check it out, and then we are going to jump on the stream, and we are going to live stream a reaction. I'm going to do a quick rundown. It will be very spoilerish, very spoiler heavy, because let's face it, I can't really talk about it if I can't tell you what happened. So fair warning: if you watch the stream tonight, if you haven't seen the first episode, make sure you do that, or come back and just don't watch it live. Just come back and watch the stream tomorrow. Tomorrow, I just went through puberty there for a second. Tomorrow, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, but yeah, we'll be doing that. If like I said, if all goes well, we will see you tonight around, I'd say 10:30ish Eastern, something like that, because it's going to wrap around. Actually, you know what? That's not true, because the first episode is going to be a longer one, isn't it? So guys, I actually don't know for sure when the stream is going to go live, because it's usually an hour. I think tonight's episode is going to be at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. So we may be closer to after midnight on the stream, but I still want to get my reaction out there, because like I said, it's the first of the last of this series, and this is a personal favorite of mine, and everybody loves the show. So so yeah, look for that tonight. Not sure when, probably sometime around midnight-ish, or if you just want to check it back, check back tomorrow. It'll be in our Facebook feed, so no big deal. I'll probably possibly doing some YouTube uploading later on. We'll see about that, but I appreciate you guys stopping by. Be sure to like our page. You can follow me on all social media at Jason Messer, and we will see you later, guys. Appreciate it.